The Washington Huskies were able to almost complete perfection in 2024. They were the national runner-up, and after making a run to the national championship game, you'd think that there are some lofty expectations in Seattle. And while that very well may end up being the case, there is a ton of turnover with a new coach and basically a completely flipped roster. So can the Huskies make another run back to the college football playoff and the national championship game in 2024? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to prediction season. It is where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams. That's what I'm doing this summer, which means you should watch because I'm doing your favorite team. Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. Thank you so much for watching this video. It helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you would like to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, please like, comment, share, do anything else you can to help interact, support the channel. Watch my other videos, of course, but it really does support what I do here on YouTube, whatever you guys are able to do. The Washington Huskies enter life in the Big Ten Conference, and we're about to talk about them here in just a little bit, but you got to know how we do it first. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the day, we will go through and give it a good old game-by-game schedule, preview, and prediction. A couple footnotes before we really get things going. Right over here in this bar are going to be the stats, either offensively, defensively, depending on what the heading up there says. Again, those are the numbers the team put up last season. And right below the team's logo, for your viewing pleasure, I have put the team's coaching staff. So I won't waste any more time. Let's start by talking about the offense and the most important position on the field. That is the quarterback position. And Washington lost one of the best quarterbacks in the nation last year. Michael Penix was nearly a 5,000-yard passer. 4,903 yards with 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, was only sacked 11 times. They had a really good offensive line last year with 65% completion percentage. So Michael Penix, after having all the injury history, finally excelled last year and was a top 10 draft pick. He is now in Atlanta with the Falcons. You also did have a couple of backups in this room, and Dylan Morris and Austin Mack leave through the transfer portal with the coaching change. So what does this quarterback room look like here? Well, enter Will Rogers from Mississippi State. Last year did battle with some injuries, only around 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 4 picks. But if I take you all the way back to 2021, 4,700 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on 74% completion percentage. Now, that was in the past happy offense, but Will Rogers is still going to be a very experienced gunslinging quarterback that the Huskies are going to be able to use very, very nicely. You do have a couple other pieces entering through the portal as well, but it is Will Rogers' show. The running back room does lose Dylan Johnson, who took a little bit to get going last year, but started to find his rhythm and be a huge piece for the Huskies down the stretch. Almost 1,200 yards last year, just 5 yards shy, while rushing in for 16 touchdowns last year. Will Nixon was the second leading rusher. You lose him as well. However, there is some fair amount of talent coming back in the running back room that was here last season. Daniel Ngata, Cameron Davis, and Sam Adams all come back. Meanwhile, Jonah Coleman and Jordan Washington both follow Jed Fish in from Tucson. They are formerly from the Arizona Wildcats. Jonah Coleman, again, one of the more proven players. And Jordan Washington, I believe, was a freshman coming into the Arizona program. They had him locked down for the longest time. But again, with the coaching change, he transferred over to now committing for Washington. So technically, you could put him in that freshman category as well. I went ahead and just put him with the portal. We know the amount of talent that is leaving this wide receiver room. It was unquestionably one of the most talented, if not the most talented, wide receiver room in the nation last season. Rome Odunze was an absolute stud and was in contention for winning the Biletnikoff Award. Again, ended up going over to Marvin Harrison Jr. 1,640 yards on 92 catches with 13 scores. Jalen Polk was right behind him with 1,159 yards, 9 touchdowns on 69 catches. And McMillan rounded out the trio with a 559-yard, 5-touchdown season of his own. 3 very talented players that will now all be playing on Sundays, and for very good reason. They're all very, very good. And you do lose a couple guys to the portal as well. Most notably is Jeremy Bernard. He has entered the portal, now will be playing for a brand new program. Had a pretty good year last year, considering the talent that was in this wide receiver room. 419 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. He will be going over to play with his old head coach, Kalen DeBoer, at Alabama. And you do lose Tyshawn Lyons. He's over to Utah. He was a depth piece last year, didn't see much playing time. Again, he still is a fairly notable loss because I think he has some pretty good upside. Let's just move right on to the tight end room as well. Devin Colpin, Jack Westover, 2 leading receivers among tight ends last year, are both gone, as well as Josh Cuevas and Trey Watson. He was originally committed to Washington over from Fresno State, but I believe has since gone over to Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken. So those are both losses there. Who does come back to the pass catching room? Well, again, not a whole lot of guys that posted huge numbers for the team last season. I mean, Giles Jackson is your leading returner among wide receivers, 106 yards and a touchdown last year. That's all he managed, but again, it was a loaded room, so we'll find out what he's made of, as well as Denzel Boston and Rashid Williams, and you got some transfers coming in as well. Audric Harris and Kevin Green Jr. both follow Jed Fish from Tucson, while Jeremiah Hunter comes over from Cal. And in the tight end room, Quentin Moore and Ryan Otten do come back, while Decker DeGraff does come in as a freshman. And your offensive line loses a ton of talent from one of the best offensive lines in the country last season, Troy Fautanu, however you say that last name. Again, I apologize for any mispronunciations, but they are both gone to the NFL. Parker Brailsford, that should be Brailsford, 1 second, Magic 321. There you go. See, fixed just like that. Nate Caleppo and Julius Buello are all gone through the transfer portal. So that's going to leave that's actually going to leave a lot of pieces battling it out for the starting jobs on the offensive line. Guard Memilar, Landon Hatchett, Khalid Tafai, and Sayone Fasalo, if I said any name wrong, I apologize, are going to be coming back. They'll battle for some starting pots. Drew Azopardi will be coming in through the portal, as well as Enoch Vimahi over from Ohio State, and Logan Sagapolu is in through the portal as well. The offensive line, okay, let's just talk about this offense as a whole. It's not going to be as talented as it was last season. The passing game is not going to get 343 pass yards per game, although it might, considering Will Rogers fares pretty well in a high-octane passing offenses. I just don't know if the Washington Huskies have enough talent to be able to produce that. However, the wide receiver room is fairly unproven. We'll see what they're made of. Jeremiah Hunter's a good addition from the portal. Jonah Coleman's a good addition from the portal. They have some good talent in that running back room. The offense will be pretty solid in 2024. I just don't see it being where it was near last year after all the talent that they lost. Let's take over and look at the Husky defense here in 2024, because it too sees a ton of the turnover from a defense that, albeit statistically, was not the best last year, but whenever Washington needed a big play, it was the defense that came through and made a big stop, forced a big turnover, and helped Washington into that national championship game. Braylon Trice, Zion Tupuola Fetui, and Tuli Latui Gasanoa are all going to be gone through the NFL. Again, if I butchered any of those names, especially that second name, I apologize profusely. But they were all very good players. Braylon Trice, 49 tackles, 7 sacks last season. ZTF, 29 tackles, 3.5 sacks from last season as well. And then Latui Gasanoa, 19 tackles last year, was a force on the defensive interior. So your defensive line looks like this. Voy Tunufi, Jacob Bondes will be coming back, but a lot of their talent comes in through the transfer portal. Isaiah Ward, Russell Davis, Sebastian Valdez, Jaden Wayne, and Bryce Butler are all defensive lineman transfers that enter this program. Where are they all from, I hear you asking? Well, Jaden Wayne is over from Miami. You have Sebastian Valdez over from an FCS side in Montana State. Isaiah Ward and Russell Davis both follow Jed Fish, again, from Arizona, and Bryce Butler is in, I believe, as a JUCO transfer as well. In the linebacker room, you do lose a ton of talent here as well. Edifwan Ulofoshio is gone, as well as Raylan Goforth to the NFL. Two very, very talented players, and Ulofoshio was this team's second leading tackler last year with 94 of them, had 3 sacks, had an interception, very talented player. You do lose another linebacker to graduation as well. However, this is still a fairly talented linebacker room as Carson Bruner does come back, was the team's third leading tackler last year, had 86 tackles, 3 pass defended, 1 sack. Alfonso Tuputala and Drew Fowler will all be returning, as well as Byron Parham and Ethan Barr as transfers. Parham from San Jose State and Ethan Barr from Vanderbilt. You do lose some pretty good defensive backs as well. Jabbar Muhammad has gone through the transfer portal, a very, very talented corner for the team last year. 46 tackles, 2 pass defended, 2 sacks, my apologies. His pass defended numbers are a lot more impressive than 14 of them, with, I believe, 2 or 3 interceptions for him last year. And in your safety room, Dominique Hampton and Michelle Powell and Asa Turner and Vincent Nunnally. I forgot there was a third line there, but Hampton, Powell, Turner, and Nunnally are all gone. Hampton off to the NFL, was the team's leading tackler with 108 of them last year. Asa Turner and Michelle Powell, very, very talented safeties for this team. They combined for around 50 or so tackles. Powell also had 3 interceptions last season, and then Nunnally was a depth piece that will also be leaving this room. So your defensive back room looks like this. Elijah Jackson, Thaddeus Dixon, and Darren Barkins come back as cornerbacks, with Ephesians Pryshock, one of the most fun names to say in college football, comes over through the transfer portal again from the Arizona Wildcats. Cameron Fabikulainen, I believe I said that last name right. I probably didn't. You can roast me for it in the comment section below. Mikael Esteen and Tristan Dunn will all be coming back as safeties, while Jordan Shaw comes in through the portal, I believe by way of Arizona as well, but I will be checking that out here. Peyton Waters comes in as a freshman, and hey, kickers are people too. We got to show them some love. No one really leaves this kicking room, so you do get Jack McAllister back as your punter, and Grady Gross is back as your kicker. And Jordan Shaw, I will find out where he is transferring from. But nonetheless, let's talk about this defense here in 2024. This is going to be a very, very solid defense here. Yes, again, they lose a ton of talent, but there still is some pretty good talent here. And Arizona's defense last year had some pretty good players and some pretty good moments as well. So this is definitely going to be a very, very interesting defense to watch. By the way, Jordan Shaw is coming over from Indiana. Sorry, I sort of rambled on there and didn't really make a whole lot of sense while trying to find out where Jordan Shaw was transferred from. I just, some reason, didn't have it written down. Again, he is from Indiana. Talking about the defense super quickly here. Yes, again, not as talented as last year. Maybe you see a couple of these numbers decrease, but life in the Big Ten is going to be hard. There are some really good offensive teams here in this conference, and with the amount of talent that they lost, I'm definitely a little concerned about Washington's defense entering 2024. I still feel like it's going to be a pretty solid unit. Again, some of those numbers that you see up right there may go down, but they definitely are not as talented as last season, much like the offense was last year, or I should say, much like is the case with the Huskies offense as well. We're going to go through their schedule here in just a little bit. Before we do, you got to know how I categorize it. Every game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or the slanted text. Neutral site games listed accordingly. Any game in green should be an easy win for the Huskies, while any game in yellow is going to be a close one, but I still think the Huskies pull it out, while red is any loss. They're going to win their first 2 games of the season. Weber State should be an easy win for them in week 1, and then in week 2, they should be able to get an easy win against Eastern Michigan. That text was green. Let's keep it green. 2 easy wins to start off the season against an FCS and a MAC competitor. We still get the Apple Cup. Thank goodness. Even though Washington State did not follow Washington over to the Big Ten Conference, they will be playing in the Apple Cup against the Washington Huskies. This is a truly, truly special day, right? Much like we still got Oregon and Oregon State, at least for a little bit here, we are still going to get Washington and Washington State. It is in Seattle, technically a neutral site. They're going to play it at Lumen Field, but I do think the Huskies are going to be able to win this game. I think Will Rogers will be able to elevate them above Washington State, who lost Cam Ward, a ton of other weapons gone through the transfer portal off to other programs as well. Even, I believe, a couple weapons there that are gone through the NFL. Jake Dickert, I think, still has a pretty solid squad, but life as an independent, who knows what that's going to bring for Washington State. I think it brings a loss to the Washington Huskies here. Still a very solid team. They push Washington in this rivalry game but I do think this one belongs to the Huskies. So they start out 3-0, and why not? I have them starting out 4-0 here as well. Northwestern's going to be an interesting team to watch. David Braun did a fantastic coaching job with that team last season, as I think he will be able to do so again in 2024. However, there's just, for me, being able to play this game in Seattle. Northwestern doesn't really have a true home field advantage. Again, it doesn't this season because of renovations. Doesn't really matter. This game is on the road into Seattle. I think Washington wins this one. Northwestern's one of those teams, though, that's going to battle. And even though Washington probably is the more talented team here, that Northwestern's going to battle, they're going to put up a tough fight, but the Huskies will still be able to win. I got this one here being a loss for the Washington Huskies. It is going to be a road loss against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. My reason being, you got to watch out for Rutgers here in 2024. I think they are going to be a really sneaky competitive team, and one of those teams this year that I just have a feeling will surprise in 2024. They got a pretty darn good roster. Greg Schiano is that head coach. They have trended in the right direction. They made a bowl game last season, and Rutgers is going to be one of those teams in the Big Ten Conference that you just won't be able to count out in 2024. They're going to play hard defense. They have some good offensive talent. I like Greg Schiano's Scarlet Knights, and I think they get a win here against the Washington Huskies to start what I think is not going to be a fun stretch for Washington. Also, that does happen to be a Friday night game as well. I think they lose their next 2 games here. I don't have to explain this national championship rematch a whole ton. Michigan clearly does have the superior team, especially defensively. Even though a lot of defensive weapons are gone, a lot comes back. The quarterback situation concerns me a little bit, as I'm just not in love with anyone in that room, but you do have Donovan Edwards back, some pretty darn good pass catchers, including tight end Colston Loveland, and still a pretty darn impressive offensive line. Michigan will beat Washington in the national championship rematch in Seattle, and then I think Washington goes on the road and loses to the Iowa Hawkeyes. The offense has to get better in 2024, right? It has to. Tim Lester's in to be the offensive coordinator. Who knows how much that's going to end up improving this offense as a whole, but we know the defense will play really good football, and that's what will help them beat the Washington Huskies there in Week 7. Their first bye week comes after the Iowa game, and I think they get back to their winning ways. They're going to beat the Indiana Hoosiers on the road. Kurt Cignetti's first year here, he has some solid players, has built a solid roster, and I think will lay a good foundation this season, but I don't see that translating into much success on the football field quite yet. Very good coach. I love the hire, but I'm not loving the team just yet. That's a win for the Washington Huskies, and I think there's going to be room for Washington here to win one game that they quote-unquote shouldn't on this schedule. USC is going to have an improved defense this year. They brought DeAnton Lynn over from UCLA. How much of an improved defense, that is remained to be seen. The offense should still be good, as Miller Moss is going to be leading what's going to be a very talented group of skill position players, especially Zachariah Brants and that wide receiver bunch. But Washington has enough talent to be competitive with some of these teams and win a game that they shouldn't. Again, quote unquote. I think this is going to be that game. USC's defense does concern me a little bit. Again, even though I love the hire of DeAnton Lynn as the defensive coordinator, I think the defense does find a way to cost USC 1 or 2 games here, which I know is a pretty tough thing to try to predict. You kind of want to stay away from that. But at the end of the day, Will Rogers has enough offensive weapons to be able to get through this USC defense that still could see their bumps and bruises in 2024. I like Washington to win that game, especially because it's at home, but I do have them losing 2 out of their next 3. I think they go on the road and lose to Penn State, who are going to be a very talented team this year. Can Drew Aller develop that downfield ball? That's going to be the question mark there, but 2 very, very talented running backs, a good group of wide receivers, now led by former Ohio State Buckeye Julian Fleming. The defense is going to be superb. Abdul Carter's moved to his true position as an edge rusher. Penn State will win that one in State College in Happy Valley. Washington will be able to beat the UCLA Bruins. Too many question marks for me. The coaching situation is weird. They lost DeAnton Lynn. They lost Chip Kelly. They lost Dante Moore. Lost a lot of talent. Washington will be able to win that one. I don't really particularly like USC in 2024. And then Oregon's one of the best teams in the country now, led by Dylan Gabriel. Dan Lanning's squad's going to be ridiculously good. They can contend for a Big Ten title. Washington is not going to win that one. So I got 7-5, which, yes, after making a national championship run is disappointing, but this team is decimated. The coaching staff was decimated. You have basically an entirely new roster. I think this is a team that is built enough ready to be competitive, and I think the schedule is favorable enough to get some good wins, but I don't see this team making a college football playoff run in 2024. But let me know what you think about the Huskies in the comments section below, and we are going to be moving on to the Kansas State Wildcats. They'll be up next. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.